Welcome to episode 3 of the P2P Connects Us podcast. I'm your host, John Light, and today we're going to be talking about the spread of 3D printing technology, Stellar's network outage post-mortem, the UK government's review of the P2P economy, sharing economy snitches sing praises about their victims, and last but certainly not least, Brian Vu joins the show to tell us all about the coin shuffle protocol. Hello, and welcome once again to episode 3 of the P2P Connects Us podcast. Today is October 2nd, 2014. I'm recording this at an odd time because I've been getting ready for my trip to Florida to attend the Coins in the Kingdom conference, where I will be speaking about basic Bitcoin security and privacy techniques that people can use to protect themselves when using this revolutionary new technology that's taking the world by storm. With that said, this show contains neither career nor investment advice, so please use any of the services or products described in this show at your own risk and only after conducting thorough due diligence. I mention this because in the comments section of the last episode on Let's Talk Bitcoin, I saw that somebody decided to buy some XRP after listening to the show. And while I'm glad that we gave a thorough enough explanation that you feel confident purchasing this nascent cryptocurrency, do keep in mind that just as the value can go up, it can also go down. So only really invest in these cryptocurrencies or technologies, companies in general, if you have really done your due diligence and you really think that they have good odds of going up in the future. I have been given XRP by Ripple Labs because I've participated in some early beta testing of their products. So I am personally long XRP, but I also haven't invested any of my own money into it yet. So just keep that in mind when you are perusing the different cryptocurrencies that are available online. A lot of them show wild price fluctuations. A lot of them show the signs of pump and dump kind of activities. So this is truly the digital wild, wild west out here. So do exercise extreme caution and caveat emptor. That said, on the topic of cryptocurrency, I would like to announce that the second P2P Connects Us sponsor token auction starts this weekend. The first token sold for 133,337 LTB coin. So I guess I'm a leet podcaster now, if you want to read that in leet speak. But thanks a lot to whoever bought it. One of the beautiful things about cryptocurrency is that the purchaser doesn't really have to know me, and I don't really have to know who the purchaser is. But obviously, for this particular product, it's good that the purchaser knows who I am, because they know that they'll actually be able to redeem their sponsor token for a sponsor slot in a future episode of the podcast. So you don't have to redeem the sponsor token right away when you've bought it. And so far, I haven't heard back from the winner of this auction yet. So no obligations to actually redeem it, but anytime you're ready, if you have a peer-to-peer project that you'd like to promote on the show, please go ahead and make a bid on the auction, which you can find at auction.letstalkbitcoin.com. If you win the auction, then you'll receive a token that you can redeem for a 45-second advertisement slot in a future P2P Connects Us podcast, where I will talk about your peer-to-peer project or whatever peer-to-peer project it is that you want to support, and let the audience know about what's going on out there in the world of P2P. So thanks again for the person who bid on and won the last auction, and good luck to everyone who bids on this next one. Also, I'd like to give thanks to the generous donors from listeners in the audience. Thanks to you, SoundCloud uploads are coming soon. This was something that was requested by a few listeners, in the comments section on Let's Talk Bitcoin. They were saying that they were having trouble streaming from WordPress, where everything is currently hosted right now. SoundCloud premium accounts have unlimited upload capabilities for only $15 a month. So I made a proposition: if I can get $15 worth of tips on the next few episodes, then I would be happy to buy a SoundCloud account. So thank you, generous listeners, for crowdfunding the SoundCloud account of P2P Connects Us. I will try to have that set up as soon as possible. So with those announcements out of the way, let's go on to the news. There's a lot of exciting news coming out which hints at a viral spread of 3D printing technology. If you're unfamiliar with 3D printing, basically what this technology does is it uses a machine with an X, Y, and Z axis, so 3 dimensions, to heat up raw materials and fuse it with cooled down material to create 3D objects. 3D printing has long been used in the commercial sector, but the machines have typically been priced in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. But within the past decade, there has been a surge in desktop 3D printers, which only cost several $1,000s, even as low as a couple $100s. These can typically only be used to create little toys and trinkets and rough prototypes for certain products. But the quality-price ratio is getting better all the time, and distribution is improving as well. Shapeways, a 3D printing and commerce as a service company, has announced that they have surpassed 20,000 shops on their website. Shapeways allows artists, designers, and inventors to upload 3D designs to an e-commerce store for people to purchase and have made and shipped to them by Shapeways. It's an interesting business model, and while the service is more peer-to-business to peer than peer-to-peer directly, it does show how powerful this technology can be when designs can be made at home, uploaded to the cloud, and then appear as real 3D printed objects on the customer's doorstep just days later. UPS is also getting in on the 3D printing revolution, announcing that they're expanding their pilot program testing the technology in stores from 6 locations to over 100 locations across the US. They envision everything from product prototypes to one-of-a-kind cell phone cases. No word yet, though, on whether they'll let someone print a Liberator in store. Wait, what's the Liberator, you ask? The Liberator is a 3D printable gun, the culmination of the Wiki Weapon project designed by a nonprofit called Defense Distributed, and first fired by the organization's co-founder Cody Wilson last year. Defense Distributed's latest project is a $1,299 CNC milling machine called the Ghost Gunner, which is designed to effortlessly create a fully functioning AR-15 lower receiver from an 80% complete blank that can be legally bought with no serial number in person or over the internet. CNC milling is like 3D printing, except it uses destructive rather than additive manufacturing, meaning that the machines remove material from raw materials to produce a product rather than add materials. You can check out the video of the Ghost Gunner online by going to ghostgunner.net or clicking the link in the show notes. I think the consumerization and commodification of 3D printing technology will have a huge impact on micro-entrepreneurship by lowering the barriers to entry for manufacturing real-world products and pushing us that much closer to a post-scarcity economy. When the raw materials can be harvested or mined by robots and then converted into real products using 3D printers, we could soon see a world with near zero marginal costs of reproduction for physical goods, the same way we see near zero marginal cost reproduction of purely digital goods. And since the 3D printer files can be shared over P2P file sharing networks like BitTorrent, a world of fully P2P micro-manufacturing facilities could be just around the corner. To follow up on the story from episode 2 about the Stellar network outage, Stellar Foundation co-founder Jeb McCaleb published a post-mortem on the Stellar Foundation blog saying, quote, On Saturday, September 20th, several of the Stellar network validating nodes started failing. This eventually led to the network not reaching consensus on ledgers, so all transactions came to a halt. Machines and the network came back about 11 hours later. Remedial steps immediately taken. 1. Rebooted all the failed nodes and restarted Stellar D on some of the other nodes. 2. Downsized the Stellar D node size to medium on all servers. 3. Network came back online after we restarted a few more Stellar D. Causes. Single root cause is unknown, but factors include 1. Legacy code base having scalability issues. Stellar is the largest user base live on this code base and is testing the limits of this technology in real time. This outage has made us keenly aware of the scaling limitations of the current system, which we are presently working on. 2. Node store is leaking or using too much RAM. Unquote. Jed goes on to list more preventative measures that the development team is taking to ensure a network outage like this doesn't happen again, and encourages anyone with ideas for improving the system to contact the Stellar team at security@stellar.org. You can read the full post by clicking on the link in the show notes. The UK government has commissioned an independent review of the P2P sharing economy phenomenon to learn about its impact on the UK economy and recommend policy proposals based on the findings. The review is being led by Debbie Waskow, the CEO of Love Home Swap, who says, quote, "The focus of the review will be on 3 well-established areas: personal and commercial space, transport, and time and skill sharing. It will also look at sectors where there is significant growth potential, including fashion, food, and personal items such as power tools." Unquote. The findings of the review are expected to be published by the end of the year. P2P home sharing service Airbnb published a blog post announcing the UK review, stating, quote, "According to our analysis, the Airbnb community contributed $815 million to the economy in the UK in 1 year alone, and we know there is room for the sharing economy to grow in the UK and around the world. More and more governments are embracing home sharing, and we are excited to work with policymakers on the sensible rules that protect the public interest, help regular people share their homes, and ensure the sharing economy continues to thrive." Unquote. While the UK ponders the positive externalities of the P2P economy, in Australia, the city of Sydney is threatening homeowners there who use the Airbnb service with fines of up to $1.1 million plus $110,000 per day of non-compliance for failing to register as an official bed and breakfast, a process that can cost thousands of dollars in licensing fees and expensive commercial kitchen upgrades. Despite this stance, the City of Sydney Council has no problem recommending Airbnb to travelers on their website, calling the service, quote, "awesome," and telling travelers, quote, "if you are looking for cheap accommodation, then definitely check out Airbnb," unquote. Let's hope the City of Sydney can get this licensing and compliance issue sorted as soon as possible so that those travelers don't end up costing their hosts a fortune. And to continue the saga of transport network companies versus the state of California, district attorneys from Los Angeles and San Francisco have sent Lyft, Sidecar, and Uber letters demanding that they change wording on their website about what kind of information is revealed during a driver's background check, as well as a demand that all of the services immediately halt their recently launched carpooling services. The point of contention with the services is that each rider is charged individually. California state law requires that when multiple people ride in a car together, they get charged a flat group rate. So far, none of the services have complied with the demand to shut down their respective services. Meanwhile, in Utah, the Salt Lake City government has been enforcing its outdated transportation laws and levying fines of up to $6,500 on Lyft and Uber drivers in the city. They've even gone so far as to hire secret shoppers, aka snitches, to catch a ride and then report the driver to authorities afterwards. An open records request by the Libertas Institute of Utah revealed damning emails about the program sent from these secret shoppers to their government handlers. One email stated, quote, "My experience with the Lyft app was a very positive one. I really enjoyed how quickly I was able to get a ride compared to using the 3 available taxi companies in Salt Lake. If given the opportunity, I would always use the Lyft app over the regular taxi companies. The drivers are friendlier, I felt safer, and the process was about 100 times easier and faster." Unquote. Thank you, Secret Shopper, for showing your support for the P2P economy. Given the sentiment expressed in this email, it's no wonder taxi drivers and medallion hoarding corporations hate these P2P services so much and are clamoring to have the government do their dirty work by extorting drivers for thousands of dollars. Ride-sharing companies are innovating circles around the legacy transportation companies, and their cozy cartel and all of the benefits, monopoly profits, long waiting periods, poor attitudes from drivers are slipping away before their eyes. Taxi and limo companies, I'm from the P2P economy, and I have a message for you. Assimilate or accept irrelevance. I would like to welcome to episode 3 of the P2P Connects Us podcast, Brian Vu, former Google employee and current contributor to the development of the Coin Shuffle protocol. Welcome to the podcast, Brian.
Hey, John. How you doing?
Awesome. So one of the first things I like to ask people on the P2P Connects Us podcast is, how did you first get interested in peer-to-peer?
Well, I got interested in about 2011. Mike Curran, who was a Google engineer, sent an email out to our economics mailing list at Google and talked about this new thing called Bitcoin. And I looked into it, and I thought, oh, so that sounds kind of cool. And a few weeks later, I heard about it on the Econ Talk podcast. It's a general economics podcast as well. And Gavin was being interviewed, and I thought, well, this thing's probably legit if it's on the Econ Talk podcast. And then Mike had actually also posted that he was selling a few Bitcoins, and so I bought some, and then I watched them go up in value to $32 and then crash down to $1, and then I sort of forgot about it for a year or so, but then when I saw it coming back up and thought it was a real thing, then I really started to do more research into it.
So I mentioned in the brief introduction that you're a former Google employee. Was it Bitcoin in particular that gave you the courage to quit your job there and go independent?
Well, I had a couple startup ideas, and I definitely always wanted to get more work for smaller companies. And I had a few different opportunities and talked to a few different people. And Bitcoin is certainly one of the areas that interests me most, and it would be ideal to do something in Bitcoin. But right now I'm still looking around at a few different ideas, playing around with the Coin Shuffle idea, not necessarily as a company in and of itself, but maybe part of one, and talking to some folks about some other ideas as well. But ideally, I'd love to stay in the Bitcoin space.
Awesome. So if there are any people out there with a cool project that Brian might be valuable for, we'll have his contact information later. So we've mentioned it a few times here. Could you tell us a little bit about what is Coin Shuffle?
Well, Coin Shuffle is, I guess, a protocol that was invented by 3 German researchers, and it works on top of the CoinJoin protocol. I guess, John, how much detail should I get into on CoinJoin and all that sort of stuff?
That's actually a great question, because my next question here is, how is Coin Shuffle different from other privacy layers like CoinJoin, for instance?
Right. So CoinJoin was created by Greg Maxwell, and it allows a certain level of privacy in that just from taking a look at the blockchain, you can't link individual inputs and outputs to each other, meaning that the sender of a transaction cannot be completely and easily linked to the receiver of that transaction. It does that by combining the inputs and outputs into one very large transaction. There's probably a lot of detail that is a little too complicated to talk about here, but the downside of CoinJoin is that you need a server, a centralized party, that organizes the CoinJoin. And that centralized party knows the inputs and outputs and can deprivatize the participants. With Coin Shuffle, the information about the inputs and outputs is passed in a decentralized way so that there's no single party that ever has access to the mapping between the inputs and outputs. So it gives you a stronger level of privacy than CoinJoin by itself, because there is nobody that actually knows the entire mapping between inputs and outputs.
Okay, so just to summarize, the main difference between CoinShuffle and say CoinJoin is that CoinJoin requires a central server which could potentially link transactions together to de-anonymize participants in the join, while CoinShuffle is peer-to-peer, so that it's much harder for any central actor to de-anonymize participants. Is that right?
Yeah, that's more or less correct. In the CoinShuffle proof of concept that I built, there actually is a central server, but that central server does not know the mapping between inputs and outputs, and it cannot de-anonymize or deprivatize the participants. Ideally, I would actually like to move that to a system that is completely peer-to-peer. It doesn't have a centralized server at all. But in this case, the centralized server has no particularly interesting information. It's just used to facilitate some information passing among the peers. So, even though there is a server involved currently, that server can't do much.
Okay, so it's kind of like with the new WebRTC protocols, maybe, where the server's just used for maybe discovery of peers, and then the peer-to-peer connections are made after that? Is that kind of how it is? Like the server's just really dumb?
Well, in this case, the server is a WebSocket server. It's a similar kind of thing, but the connections all go through the centralized server, and they're broadcast to all of the peers. It's more like an IRC server. So all the messages are just broadcast in, and then they are rebroadcast out to everybody else.
Oh, okay. So what are some potential attack vectors when using CoinShuffle then?
The most obvious attack vector is the one where you isolate a particular individual. So let's say you want to do a CoinShuffle, and you say, I will only CoinShuffle if there are 49 other people who want to CoinShuffle with me and join my transaction. If an attacker is able to essentially pretend that they are those other 49 people, and you CoinShuffle with them, they will know you're they will know all the inputs and outputs, and they will know that yours are the only ones that they that they don't own, and so they will be able to de-anonymize you or take away your privacy in that case. That's hard to do, and there are some countermeasures you can implement against that. But that's basically a Sybil attack. So the most common, or maybe like a flooding attack, I don't know what the correct technical term is for that. But the most obvious attack is to isolate the person who's trying to shuffle with other honest shufflers.
So are you familiar at all with Darkcoin and their DarkSend technology?
Vaguely familiar. I haven't done a lot of research into it, but my understanding is that requires things like master nodes and some other things like that are a little more complex.
Darkcoin just open sourced all of their stuff today, so I've been reading up about it.
Interesting. Yeah, I think of the anonymity coins, I currently believe that Monero is probably the most, sort of the best technology, but I also generally sort of believe that Bitcoin itself, I'm not a big fan of having to switch to a different coin in order to gain privacy, so I'm hoping that those features can be added to Bitcoin itself through something like CoinShuffle. But, if you were going to go to a completely separate coin, I think Monero sounds attractive, and I actually learned about it from Greg Maxwell a few months ago, and he said, he thought that the cryptography made sense, and obviously he's a far, far more knowledgeable person than I am, so I'm kind of thinking that the crypto note type coins actually provide the best anonymity solution if you're willing to go to a completely separate coin.
Okay, good suggestion. So I guess one of the advantages of a protocol like a CoinShuffle then, which is built on top of Bitcoin, is that if people want to remain transparent, whether they're like a nonprofit or some sort of other entity that wants to be transparent and accountable for stakeholders, you have the option to do that. You can keep Bitcoin in its kind of fully transparent, fully public blockchain mode. And then if you need to protect your personal privacy, then you can turn on something like CoinShuffle. There's a lot of demonization, particularly from people in the media and the government, about people who want to use cryptocurrencies for privacy reasons. What are some of the ways that are less sinister than maybe the caricatures that the media likes to cook up? What are some of the ways that people would want to remain private when using these kinds of technologies?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think that from my standpoint, the most important thing to me is, that Bitcoin become usable by the average mainstream user. And one of the major problems with Bitcoin is that if you use it in a naive way and you don't know a lot about cryptography and you don't know a lot about how Bitcoin works, it's very easy for a non-technical user to do things like expose their salary information, or to expose how much they paid for their car, or how much they paid for their wedding ring. And I think that will freak a lot of people out if they start using Bitcoin and they're non-technical and they don't know how it works, and all of a sudden all their neighbors know all this information about them. Whether it's, somebody might publish a large amount of this information en masse, or even if you end up, let's say you pay the neighbor kid to mow your lawn, that neighbor kid can trace up your salary history and see how much money, look for big deposits that you make every 2 weeks, learn all kinds of things about you. So I think that the main thing is that I don't want a mainstream user to get freaked out by the vast amount of transaction information that would get shared with everybody if they didn't have something like CoinShuffle.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's the little instances of anonymity maybe that we take for granted that seem particularly disturbing in a way once it's so exposed and out in the open like it is possible with Bitcoin. Are you aware of any consumer-facing wallets or maybe commercial services that have implemented either CoinShuffle or some other privacy technology to protect things like employers paying employees' salaries or consumers, paying for goods from merchants?
The only one I'm aware of that's oriented at the consumer is blockchain.info's shared coin, and there's been quite a few people that have looked at that and decided that it wasn't particularly good at that job. So there really isn't anything out there that I'm aware of that makes sense for the consumer. People who are much more knowledgeable and who understand a lot more about Bitcoin can use things like Mixer. There are mixers, and you can move your money in and out of exchanges, move your money in and out of Coinbase. There's Dark Wallet. Those are more for experts and not so much for a non-technical user.
What's next on the roadmap for CoinShuffle? What is left to be done, and where could people go if they want to learn more about CoinShuffle and how to contribute?
Basically, I've built a very simple proof of concept based on the paper written by the folks in Germany. And ideally, I'd like to get a working version of that has proper error checking. And, there's right now, the proof of concept essentially assumes that all of the people engaging in the shuffle are good actors. There are numerous sort of attack vectors like you talked about. And so there are a bunch of different ways to mitigate those. And I'd like to build an alpha version that takes care of the most important ones. From there, I think ideally CoinShuffle would be implemented by a whole bunch of different wallets, and I'm hoping to build a proof of concept wallet that is, sort of alpha or beta quality, and people can actually use it to shuffle real coins. Right now, with the proof of concept, it's only testnet coins. So ideally, I would do that, and that's what I'm working on at the moment, or one of the projects I'm working on at the moment. If you search for CoinShuffle, you'll get the links to the CoinShuffle paper that was written by the security researchers. Tarek Lewis from the San Francisco Bitcoin Devs group is actually going to post a link to the presentation and the video shortly. And so if you search for San Francisco Bitcoin Devs, you'll find that in the links on the meetup group. And of course, you can contact me at brianvu@gmail.com, Brian with a Y and Vu, V-U. So I'd love to talk to anybody who's interested.
So you mentioned that you'd like to see the CoinShuffle protocol implemented by many different services, and I'm sure Bitcoin users feel the same. Is this like a federated protocol where everybody benefits when a lot of other services are using it, or does it only work between users of the same service?
With CoinShuffle, the more people who are doing CoinShuffles, the better it is for everybody. And the reason that is because to execute a CoinShuffle, you need other people to shuffle with you. And let's say you want to wait 50 people for each shuffle. If there are only 50 people in the world who have CoinShuffle, it can take you a long time to get enough people to shuffle. You might set your threshold at 2 people or 10 people. So initially, with a smaller number of people doing CoinShuffle, there will sort of be a smaller anonymity set, and also you'll have to wait longer to get your shuffles done. So if there are, thousands or tens of thousands of people doing coin shuffles, then coin shuffles will be going on all the time, and you'll be able to shuffle your coins much more quickly and with larger sets of participants. So the more the better, for sure. Ideally, once the proper P2P version is created, that will allow that process to happen and really scale. I think initially, I think there will be, the initial implementation that I have now is just a single server that will facilitate the passing of messages, but that's fairly easy to switch into like a federated server model. And, and then if things are going well, then hopefully myself or somebody will build a truly P2P version. But I'm interested to see how many people are interested in the first place, and if there's enough usage for the single server, and then if that starts to get enough traffic, then it shouldn't be too hard to move to the federated version. And I think the P2P version should be pretty doable as well.
Do you have any projects that you're working on in this area that you'd like to tell the P2P Connects Us audience about?
Well, I'm working on this coin shuffle thing as kind of part of a bigger project to make Bitcoin more accessible to non-technical users. So I want to build a set of hardware and software systems that will make that happen. That's one of the projects I'm working on. I've also talked to a few different people in the space about some other projects that aren't public yet, but the primary one that I'm working on is Coin Shuffle, and then taking Coin Shuffle and making that a part of a bigger project to build a system that completely non-technical users can use to hold their Bitcoins in a decentralized way without having to know a lot about cryptography, private keys, all that kind of stuff, and ideally hide things like addresses and make it much more intuitive, and also make it intuitive for them to be both secure and private without having to learn a lot of that stuff. For me to set up my own cold storage system and online Bitcoin system, and to get a reasonable amount of security took me quite a bit of time and effort. And I'm a relatively technical person who knows quite a lot about Bitcoin, and most people aren't capable of doing that. So I want to make that easier for everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like a really valuable service. It probably took me like over a year to feel comfortable with my knowledge of Bitcoin before I even felt comfortable actually using it. So something like that is definitely to anything to ease the on-ramps to kind of independent Bitcoin usage, I think would be really cool. It sounds like what you're building there is a private Bitcoin bank, and that's something that I think there could be a lot of support for in the market. So I want to thank you, Brian, for taking the time to join us on the P2P Connects Us podcast, and want to wish you the best of luck with your projects. If anyone wants to get in touch with him, again, that's Brian, Bryan, Vu, V-U, @gmail.com. Thanks for joining us, Brian.
Great. Thanks a lot, John.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 3 of the P2P Connects Us podcast. If you have any comments or questions, you can reach me through the contact page on my website at p2pconnects.us. Till next time. Wait. You didn't think I was going to forget, did you? The magic word for this episode is shuffle. 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 You can redeem the magic word at letstalkbitcoin.com for your share of the LTB coin proof of participation points for this week. Go get some.